The Patriot nurse, in her most recent video, said something at about the 3-minute mark that I truly believe, the more I listen to it, is truly a moment of prophecy. Now, I'm not going to apologize for referencing the Patriot nurse as much as I do. I've been listening to the Patriot nurse since long before I was even a YouTuber. She has a Foundations of Medical Prep course, and she has talked about being prepared with ballistic weapons and being prepared in general. But it all boils down to the unknown. And that's really the case, the loss of control. I've shown a graphic, and I'll show it later in this video, of the lights going out across America. You see, none of us know when that moment's going to come, when the grocery store is going to close its doors for the last time. You don't know. You don't know when somebody is going to come across that hill, meaning to do you harm, and you're going to have to pick up a ballistic weapon in your own defense. You don't know that. Same thing with the Foundations of Medical Prep course. You don't know when disease is going to visit itself upon you. She's gotten sick herself a few times in the last year and couldn't prevent it, but she had to be ready. That's what prepping is all about. Now, I'm going to share this little clip with you, and she's talking about something going on with the current administration, and it ties directly into this, so just bear with me for 1 second here.
The issue is multifaceted, but they know they are losing control. They know that they are losing legitimacy and relevance in a world that increasingly is calling their bluff. Can we stop and pause for a moment and just remind ourselves that the Biden administration gave the Taliban better weapons and armaments than what we as United States citizens can legally purchase? They don't care about peace. They don't care about winning the war on terror, and they don't care about like good versus evil. Not in the sense that the mainstream media would have us believe. They don't care about safeguarding the rights of American citizens. They don't care about the good of American citizens. Forget their rights. They do not care about people. They care about maintaining their control and maintaining their power. And they don't care who they have to step on. They don't care which rules they have to break. These are evil, vile, and wicked people.
Bingo. That's it in a nutshell. They are losing control. They don't know what's coming tomorrow. They don't know what's coming the day after that, the day after that, the day after that. They don't get it. And they're having an increasingly harder time attempting to predict it and plan for it. She made this wonderful comment about giving the weapons to the Taliban that not even we're allowed to have. Do you know why they did that? It's going to blow your mind. So that the Taliban can maintain control of Afghanistan. Because they couldn't do it. You see, as long as a known quantity is in control, they're better with that than they are with there being no control. Ideally, they would like to be the ones in control. But if they can't be the ones in control, the next best option is something or somebody they know being in control. They prefer the government of Iran to remain stable as opposed to there be a power vacuum. Same thing in China, same thing in Russia. They're known and predictable quantities. The reason we prep, the reason we, as the American people, take the training like the Foundations of Medical Prep and get schooled up in the use of ballistic weapons, and we do all of the things with what she refers to as beans, bolts, band-aids, because we don't know, and we know we can't control it. We know we can't control the future. We can't even predict it. We can't, but we know that if and when we get sick, if and when we're confronted with a threat, if and when we no longer have regular access to the grocery store, we have a plan, and we have a backup plan. Now, what I do is the next level. You never know when somebody's going to attempt to manipulate your mind. You need to have those tools too. 24 cognitive biases, 24 logical fallacies. This is what we talk about. Florida Maquis Patreon channel, $1 per month. Not going to waste a whole lot of your time with it, but it's critical to have this training and to be able to see things like this. Because if you don't see somebody coming down the pike, and they have the ability to make you think and believe things without you knowing it, just by mere suggestion, and you don't know the tools they're using and the tactics they're using, you're going to be a victim. Just as much as if they came over that hill with a ballistic weapon, or if you didn't have food stored up, or if you didn't know how to take care of yourself in a medical sense. You'll be just as much a victim. Now, we've talked about these Hollywood shows. Let me see here. Here we go. Colony, Walking Dead, Black Sails, Defiance. I know it's all Hollywood, but they all have this in common. There's a power vacuum. There's a power vacuum. There is a loss of control, and people are vying for it, and it's about the decisions they have to make. In different scenarios with Colony, there's an area that the aliens control, for example, within the walls. And while the people inside really don't like the alien control, it beats what's outside the walls, which is nothing. A total vacuum of power where survival is almost impossible. Walking Dead. What is literally the premise of every single episode? Everything's out of control, and it's just don't get eaten by the zombies that day. And go find food and go do supply runs and find some way of having some type of organized and controlled society. Black Sails. People who left the controlled world in Europe for the uncontrolled world of the New World. And thought that was a preferable form of existence, but then learned, things are tough. Same thing with Defiance. So the point of this is there might be a day come. There might be a day come. People have warned, Florida Maquis, they're going to use an EMP and all this. There might be a day come when you wish for that. There might be a day come when the powers that be have so much control and they use the power grid and they use satellites and they use all of the interconnectivity that makes life so convenient and so easy to control you in a way that you just can't deal with. And you might be forced to choose between the comfort and convenience and predictability, and pay attention here, fairness of a FEMA camp over living in a world where there's nothing but shadow economy. Because living in a power vacuum, living in a world without control, it's a very unfair place. The New World was a very unfair place back in the 16 and 1700s. It was survival of the fittest. There's nothing fair about it. Now, what does this have to do with the real world? Ford applies to patent self-repossessing cars that can drive themselves away. Alternatively, the car could drive itself to a junkyard if it costs too much to repossess it. Yes, really. This is not a joke. You go buy a car, you can't afford the car note, the car can repossess itself. Now, there's something that Ford hasn't thought about here that I think bears looking into, but it shows that all they care about, even at the corporate level, is control. They don't care about people. Just like what the Patriot nurse just said. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about right. They don't care about good. All they care about is control. And that things are controlled and predictable. Imagine being somebody that would rather say, we'd rather take this car that you're using to go back and forth to work, to live, to need whatever reason, we'd rather see it driven to a junkyard if you're not going to make payments to us. We'd rather see it, instead of seeing it be used for something good and just taking the loss, we would rather see it driven to a junkyard. Now, what if somebody's living in it? They have this ability with satellites where they can start the car up, they can install stuff on the computer and make the car self-driving. What if somebody's living in it? What if there's a child or a dog? They have let's go back to this article real quick. They have different levels too. It says what they could do is, instead of repossess it outright, they could say that no longer it has air conditioning, or that you can't put the windows up and down, you can't use the radio or anything like that. So they make it an annoyance. They have it make an annoying sound. every 30 seconds, it's like, you're behind on your payments, or, makes the horn beep all the time, or something like this. Now, I know they have some versions of this already. But if they're going to take possession of the car remotely, there's so many things they haven't thought about. What if somebody gets the idea, you know what? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get this car under these terms, and I'm not going to make any payments on it. I'm going to load this thing up with a giant bomb. And then I'm going to park it, right out on the road, make it nice and easy for them to dial up their auto repossession service and watch the car drive away driverless. And then I'm going to follow from a good safe distance and wait until it's in the middle of heavy traffic somewhere. And then I'm going to flip the switch. Didn't think about that, did they? And besides, for $13 on Amazon.com, you can buy this little device. And it's super easy to install. A couple O clamps. Got a fuel line. Put this thing in line with it. A couple O clamps on it. Shut the fuel off. Now, they might be able to make it so that you don't have the air conditioning and that you can't use the radio or the windows or whatever and all this kind of stuff. But they can't drive it away. As long as you have that little lever in the off position, no fuel to the engine, engine's not starting, nobody's going anywhere with anything. So it shows you that they don't think these things through. And it's going to get worse. U.S. housing market crumbling under the weight of higher mortgage rates, rock bottom affordability. The states that are collapsing, there's just tons and tons of them. Where's the chart at here? There's only a few that are recover, and most of them are, the only reason they're recovering is because they were already so far down that they could go no place but up. You see, they're losing control over people because people are losing faith in this government. They're losing faith in the, that there's going to be any real recovery in their lifetime. Decline in gasoline demand, a noticeable and permanent change, says analyst. And it's what it really comes down to. It's what I said before. As long as somebody is in control, that's preferable to freedom. That's preferable to liberty. That's preferable to the idea of what our founding fathers had for this nation. They would ideally like to be the ones in control, for sure. But if they can't be, somebody else needs to be. And that explains what the Patriot Nurse said about the weapons and the Taliban. Because they knew the Taliban was going to drop the hammer. And that's all they wanted. They just didn't want Afghanistan to be a place of freedom. And believe me, goodbye petrodollar. They've discovered oil off the coast of China, and a huge story today about that. And as the use of oil and the use of gasoline goes down, the power of our money goes down, because that's what it's all tied to. And I'm going to leave with this. I've used this image before, largely in videos about Venezuela, but it really applies now, because I'm going to use these words that make up trails in sentences. And ask yourself, is that a sentence I would say? Many people would say, oh, I'm not a socialist. I'd never say any. Be careful. You might. You might. Let's start with the first word, taxed. Government, I want you to make sure that the rich are taxed at a higher rate so that I don't have to pay income taxes. They've got plenty. They need to pay their fair share. Government, I need you to do that on my behalf. Regulated. Government, I need you to make sure that businesses where I shop are regulated. I don't want to get scammed. Now, if I own a business, I don't want you regulating it because, that's going to be an inconvenience for me. But I want you to make sure that all other businesses are regulated so that I don't get scammed. You got people that are checking on what they're doing and making sure that they're following the rules. Government, I want you to do that on my behalf. Government, I want you to make sure that everybody coming to this country is approved. Everybody coming from another place is approved by your standards. Now, I don't want you to give me any I was born here. I don't need to be approved because I was born here. I was born within, this particular part of the globe. I don't need to be approved to live here, but those other people, they need to be approved to live here. A government, I want you to do that on my behalf. Government, I want you to make sure that there are inspections and insurances for all of the businesses in my neighborhood, that you go and make sure that they're selling meat, that they're not selling bad meat, and that if something bad happens or if I get sick, government, on my behalf, I want you to make sure they're insured. And if not, I want you to shut them down. I want to you to make sure that my dentist has a license. Now, I want to be able to go do all sorts of things I want to do without a license, but I want you, government, on my behalf, to go make sure that all of the people that are providing me services are licensed. Government, that's your job. You see my point here? About government, about it's always socialism for the other guy, but capitalism for me. Socialism for the other guy, but capitalism for me. Imagine all of these people that are so-called, that decry socialism, and they want to sing the praises of capitalism, if it was flipped around. If there weren't approvals, there weren't inspections, there weren't these socialist trails, that everybody paid 15% flat tax rate, no matter whether you made $10,000 a year or whether you made $100,000 a year. Everything was regulated. Everybody was approved for everything all the time. You see one of the, let's see if I can find the collage I put together here. There was, I don't even know if I want to talk about this at this point in the video, but there was a paradigm that has bothered a lot of people that reared its ugly head in all of these survival situations that had to do with the trade of goods and services that are seen as a little bit immoral. I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Because when it comes right down to it, it's the only form of capitalism that you can assure where there's no crony capitalism going on. I think a lot of people use the term crony capitalism, not even knowing what the term crony means. Crony capitalism is where people at the highest levels all get together and collude to fix prices in a very somewhat socialist and self-serving way. That doesn't lead to immorality. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Is when there is a completely free market and the government stays out of it and you have completely unbridled capitalism, just like in Africa, you see all sorts of things, anybody and everybody doing anything for money, in the name of money, in the name of getting rich, with absolutely no moral compunction about it whatsoever. And then, of course, when people start suffering at a high enough level, they then call for government to come right into the rescue. And that's what leads to where we are now. So I just wanted to give that shout out and say spot on. It's about control. It is absolutely about control. And right now, at least for the moment, in North America, Florida is the freest place, the place of least control in the whole country. Truly. Because we've realized that here. Now, it leads to a lot of very, unseemly things in Florida. I agree. I will never tell you that Florida is some bastion of restraint and hyper-morality. Absolutely not. There'll be things down here that are like, oh, why is that allowed? Why can they do that and that shouldn't be? Well, it's part of freedom. It's part of liberty. It's just the way things are sometimes. So I'll leave it there. But being prepared is about the unknown and about the lack of control. Because you don't know. Her Foundations of Medical Prep course should be required for everyone out there who calls themselves a prepper. What you do or what you don't do with ballistic weapons and to what level is entirely up to you. Same thing, I guess, with food. But that medical prep stuff, we're all human beings. Even she'll tell you that. She got sick, she said, I think 3 or 4 times in the last year or two. She was out for quite some time. She's a nurse. So if it can happen to her, it can happen to any of us, can it? So I will leave it there. God bless. Have a great weekend. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.